Hi, everyone, and welcome to Money Unwrapped.
Welcome back, everybody, to Money Unwrapped.
I'm your host, Jordan Harrison, and I am a licensed financial advisor and insurance professional.
And I'm your host, John Harrison, and I'm a licensed financial advisor as well as an insurance professional, and I've been in the financial services industry for the past 27 years. And we are a father-daughter team.
And today we are talking about the evolution of our economy in the Western world over several centuries and essentially asking the question, how did we get here? One caveat before we begin that I want to definitely point out is that we're going to be covering nearly 1,000 years of economic history today. So we're going to be speaking in really broad strokes that characterize the overarching economic trends throughout Western civilization that have led us to our modern economy as we're now experiencing it. Most of human history was the agrarian economy, but specifically we're going to start in medieval Europe. So medieval Europe was an agrarian society, which means that the majority of people, historians generally estimate 80 to 90% of the population, were living in rural areas and involved in farming. And the majority of these farmers were peasants who actually didn't own the land.
And, because they didn't own the land, they lived at a very subsistence level, which means that they just had to really work just for the bare necessities of food on a daily basis and to cover their housing.
Right.
So they worked for somebody else.
Right. And that labor was extremely physically intensive and often handed down generation to generation.
Absolutely, which is why they had lots of children and why life expectancy at that time was really subdued, because it was a very hard lifestyle where you had to work really hard to eat and live on a day-to-day basis.
Since most people were farmers, 80 to 90% of the population, currency was honestly extremely limited, and bartering was more the money of the day. And we'll get into the history of money and currency in another episode, but it's important to understand the definitions today so that we can understand how payment for goods and services and labor had no concrete standard and varied from situation to situation. For example, many farmers paid rent to their landlords with labor, basically working on the farmland provided by the landlord, which, to your point earlier, is why they had so many kids.
Absolutely, because children were cheap labor. And if you're trying to just get by, the more children you have, the easier it is to delegate those tasks so that you can live from day to day.
Right. Almost not even cheap, almost free, besides taking care of the kids.
They're never free. Even back then, they were never free.
Basically, what all this boils down to is in that time period, land equaled wealth and children equaled labor. But moving on from that time period and the agrarian economy, the next time period that I want to discuss is the Industrial Revolution, which I feel like is such a big concept and everybody in school learns about it. This is the time period when we saw a huge shift from people living in rural areas and farming to now cities and factories, which a lot we still see today, which was propelled by the technological advances that made farming way easier.
Yes, technology has taken society from, like you were talking about, an agrarian society to the Industrial Revolution. Why did people go to cities? Because they were able to travel. Technology really drives the different levels of progression for society. So again, we started as agrarian. Where was technology at? It was very
limited,
right? Technology started improving. And what was the big technological advance that took us from the agrarian to the cities?
Factories.
But what really caused that was passage down waterways. You couldn't really get from more than a few miles away because you had to walk, right? Imagine if you had to walk to school every day.
Oh my gosh, I know. You always say, in my time,
right. I had to walk 10 miles
in a snowstorm
uphill. Both going and coming. But you think about that,
right?
Like in Mark Twain's era, riverboat captains, they were the bomb basically because they could get people from point A to point B. Well, then technology advanced till we got to the steam engine, right?
Right.
Which led to the Industrial Revolution. And then from the steam engine, we've now gone from a factory type economy, manufacturing type economy, to where now today we're a service economy and God only knows where we're going to go.
Right. I mean, it's uncharted waters, and I think it's going to be fascinating to talk about. But I do want to talk about some of the things that evolved during the Industrial Revolution, like labor unions, 40-hour work weeks. I mean, that was a brand new concept at the time. People were used to working from sun up to sundown, or even later sometimes. This is also the time period when wage labor became the standard. No longer were people bartering. We did see child labor in the early days of the Industrial Revolution, etc., until, true modern ideas that children were not the labor force.
Child labor laws came into play.
Right, and changed the whole way that factories were set up.
Absolutely. And then factories, because of the rise of the labor unions, they had guardrails that they had to treat their employees a certain way. For example, they could only work 40 hours. And if they worked over 40 hours, they would get overtime. Think about if I forced you to work over 40 hours. Labor unions were really good at the time because as we transitioned from an agrarian society to a manufacturing society, there was no real laws in place or protections for workers. So what labor unions did is they gave protections for workers and they gave laws so that companies could not take advantage of their workers.
Right. And it's super important to protect your workers, as we know, but also to reward them for all their labor. And when pension plans came to be, that was kind of the main idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, pension plans were basically a reward for service. You work at a company for 30, 35 years. You get a monthly allowance, basically, once you're retired.
Actually, I have kind of a funny fun fact about pension plans. Guinness was an early adopter of a pension plan.
The beer company?
Yes, can you believe that?
No.
The Irish beer company.
I thought they would give them free beer.
I know, right? I think they probably did, right?
A little black and tan.
Oh, should we go out to the bar?
Now, as the world has evolved and the onus has gone from the employer supporting the employee in retirement to the employee having a vested interest in taking care of themselves in retirement, because pension plans really don't exist today. The real pension plans are in government jobs like the police, which we really need, firefighters, any type of government workers like on the healthcare side. That's where pensions really are now.
Right, but pensions have kind of adapted to now the modern idea of like a 401k. They are different, but now you see more companies sponsoring 401k plans rather than pension plans.
Right, but the 401k is a responsibility of the employee versus the pension was a responsibility of the employer. So the onus has really gone from the employer to the employee, which is one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is financial literacy, because now the onus is on everybody to kind of take care of their own financial house, so to speak. Whereas in the past, as we were going from an agrarian society to a manufacturing society, the onus was on the employer to take care of the employee.
Right, exactly. And I think one of the main ways that people take care of themselves financially is through cash flow, managing cash flow, what you spend versus what you earn, and this idea of consumerism.
Yes, consumerism was the next logical step to a manufacturing society. And we're seeing that consumerism, just like anything else, there's some good and there's some bad.
I mean, I think that it even started with the manufacturing economy. These people had extra money and they were living in cities, so they didn't have a ton of space for more kids. And like you said, that kind of created this idea of consumerism and spending. And it honestly led to the rise of the middle class and creating this new group of people who aren't working a ton, right? Like the lower class back in the days of the agrarian economy and even the early days of the Industrial Revolution. And then you also have the owners of the factories who are in the upper class. So it kind of bridged this gap between the two groups of people and created this new idea of the middle class. And they had all this cash that they were just ready to spend, and they wanted to spend it on goods and services. And we still see that.
Well, everybody wants to live a better life, right?
Yes,
like
always.
You want to live in a nice place. You want to be able to travel. You want to be able to do the things that make you happy in life.
Yeah.
So all of this kind of, as time goes on, it's shifting from where the employer kind of had the control to now where the employee has control. And we've really seen this since COVID. There's been a lot more remote work, which was unheard of before COVID.
Right.
Right?
Definitely.
Now, because of technology, we're able to talk to somebody a continent away via our computers.
You know, we keep hinting at this idea of the service economy and alluding to this, but that really is a newer concept and started post-World War II, basically where jobs shifted from goods to services, which has also been super interesting. And we can definitely see our economy now leaning into the whole idea of services. We pay for experiences, we pay for services, less about what we buy that's tangible.
Right. It's all about the experience now. You're willing to pay for a premium for service, right?
Yes.
Whereas before, it became a price question versus a service question. I would say today that in this current service economy, people are willing to pay a premium for excellent service.
So it's almost flipped in your mind.
In my mind, it has almost flipped. It's like we'll pay extra to stay at a really nice hotel where we know the room doesn't smell like smoke, where it's clean, where, we get bottles of water. Whereas in the past, you would be just like, okay, as long as it's okay, I'm willing to pay the price. But now people are really putting a premium on service.
Right.
And I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that experience as long as I have great service.
I will say, being younger and in a different financial situation than you, I think I probably do value goods more than you, because I'm also thinking about the quality of goods and how long they'll last me, right? So I'm willing to spend a little bit of extra money on a sweater that I know I'm not going to have to rebuy.
Right.
But then I think that it also kind of leans into this idea that our culture right now is so consumed by the idea of having the new best thing. But I don't know exactly how I feel about that. I can see it seeping into my life a little bit.
Well, think about when you bought the purse in New York.
You love bringing up my purses, don't you?
Oh, yeah. What caused you to buy that purse?
I saw it and it was a love connection
But
with the purse.
But didn't you have somebody helping you, talking about that purse and pointing out the features? My point is that you had somebody that was like servicing.
Right. It's almost like they try to custom tailor the experience of buying a good to also somewhat include a level of service. Like I got a free glass of champagne, they gave me a gift book, things like that just make you feel more special. Correct. Especially post-COVID. Like we always talk about privately, people long for connection now.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why also the service industry and the goods industry are almost intertwined now, because you don't just want to order something online and get no service and have no resources.
Why do people perceive BMWs and Mercedes as great? Because when they go into a dealership, they're taken care of. For example, we have a client. He has a BMW in Orlando. If he goes in to get his car washed, he can sit down and have breakfast there in the dealership.
Really?
Yes.
That must be a nice car.
Oh, Roger's excited. So what does he do? Every week, because of that experience and that service, he goes and has his car washed and he has breakfast.
Wow. I love that experience. I think that as a society, we truly have seen this major shift from the value being on the good and what someone can produce to now the value is knowledge and time and being cared for, being special, all of these things. Like in our business, people pay us for our knowledge, for our brains.
When people look back in time, what are they going to say this particular era was? It's not agrarian. It's not really a service economy. It's not a factory economy. It's probably going to be some kind of technological economy.
Yes, I mean, not just medical advances, but scientific advances get me very excited. Like, for example, people on traveling the moon right now. Right. And those photos are incredible. I don't know if you've seen them, but they are incredible. And to just think that we're just at the beginning of this new economy, we're almost on like the tipping point, to just think 30, 40, 50 years ahead that God willing we'll see, it's going to be completely different.
We're on the brink of this technological economy. We just know that technology is great as long as it works. And we also know that technology increases affluence and lifestyle and longevity.
Right.
I mean, just think, if I need to send you money, I just Apple Cash it to you.
Pay, baby.
Right. Whereas before, what did I have to do? I had to deposit the money into your bank account. But with technology now, you can send me a text, hey, I need $100, and I can just Apple Cash it to you, and you've got it 10 seconds later.
Yeah, you're welcome for tipping all your service people. Going back on that Apple
Absolutely.
Cash.
There you go.
I think one of the best examples of how our economies have changed and the evolution of them is actually this analogy of the birthday cake. So if you think about it, when you were growing up, I mean, I'm making you old, so I apologize, but moms made birthday...
I am not old. I am seasoned.
Whatever. But when you were growing up, moms made birthday cakes from scratch, mixing farm commodities, or if they went to the grocery store, even one step more evolved, they would buy the ingredients and make it, right? Well, then came the evolution of Betty Crocker and pre-mixed cake mixes, so they don't have to now go and buy the flour, the sugar, the butter, the eggs. They can just buy this and then buy a few other things. Well, then with the service economy, busy parents started just ordering cakes from bakeries or grocery stores even.
Or wedding cakes.
And they stopped buying these pre-mixed cakes or buying all the ingredients from scratch. And then when I was growing up, that's when people wouldn't even buy a birthday cake. They would go to Chuck E. Cheese. Remember, I used to love that place?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, all the best birthday parties were there, guys. But Chuck E. Cheese, they would do it all for you. The balloons, the cake, the decorations, the pizza slices.
The dancing bears.
Literally. And it was such a memorable event for me as a kid, but also future kids. Who knows what that birthday cake's going to look like?
Somebody's going to order a birthday cake from like Casanova Bakery, and then it's going to be Amazon Prime delivered that day, fresh.
Wow.
An example of technology.
Right. But I think that something that's really interesting with this analogy is that I've almost seen my generation, Generation Z, go back and start this phenomenon of making everything from scratch. I personally am on my journey of making more things from scratch, but I wonder if that's because I was raised in the Chuck E. Cheese.
And that's why it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of economy we have going forward.
I mean, what we're basically saying is that the history of the economy as we know it is the history of technology and honestly, the history of human adaptability to technology.
Right.
It's the common thread between it all.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We hope you all enjoyed. And as always, please feel free to send us an email with any questions or comments. We would love to hear from you.
And always consider us as a resource for your friend, family, colleagues, or coworkers, because as we know, right now is a very uncertain time and people have questions, and we're here as a resource.
Thank you once again for joining us. I'm your host, Jordan Harrison.
And I'm your host, John Harrison. And this has been
Money Unwrapped. Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Elevation Advisory Partners, LLC. A SEC-registered investment advisor. Harrison Capital Management, Silver Oak Securities, and Elevation Advisory Partners are separate entities.